Once students are starting to read multisyllabic words, it's important that they start to learn the orthographic conventions of the English language, meaning why do certain letters appear in certain places and how do we write English words correctly. And so as teachers who were probably never taught this in the very beginning, whether it was through your own personal schooling or even going through your teacher college, this might be something that's brand new to you. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the 6 different types of syllables and then how to introduce these to your students. Helping kids understand syllables is critical to getting them to write words correctly. It's also really important because it helps kids to be able to read words, multisyllabic words in this case. And so when we're presented with multisyllabic words, understanding which vowels make which sounds is important. And syllables is a great way to help students be able to unpack a word and be able to read it properly. So teaching kids the 6 different types of syllables and introducing these very slowly to students is important. Why? Because it's explicit instruction. And we want to make sure that students have enough practice with certain types of syllables before moving into more complex. So I'm going to be sharing with you the 6 different types of syllables and then how you can introduce this very simply to your students. Now, the resources that I'm going to be sharing in this video are all a part of the Bridging Literacy community, which is my reading and writing community for 3rd through 6th grade teachers. In this community, we work a lot with professional development and getting you trained in specific areas of instruction, but also providing you with resources, engaging mini lessons, unpacking anchor standards that help you to define exactly what you need to be teaching and when you need to be teaching it to your students, and also various forms of assessments. So if this is something that you're interested in, I'm going to leave some links for you to go and check out more information on the community, or you can feel free to ask me by sending me an email at bridget@bridgingliteracy.com. Okay, so let's jump in to the 6 different types of syllables. So one of the very first things is I will introduce the 6 different types of syllables using an anchor chart. Now, these are my favorite ways to be able to do anchor charts because if you've seen any of my previous videos when I was a classroom teacher, then you know that my classrooms had a lot of cabinets, and which is a great thing, but at the same time, it was a little bit of a curse because it didn't really allow itself to having a ton of space for anchor charts. And when I say anchor charts, I mean the big pieces of chart paper because they did not fit the cabinets very well and kids would end up ripping them. It was just a whole situation. And so for classrooms who have lots of windows or maybe just limited amounts of space when it comes to your walls, this is a great option. And all it is a legal size piece of cardstock. Of course, the cardstock, you can buy that on Amazon. I'll leave a link to one that I've purchased. It's fairly cheap for the most part, and it gives you a lot of them. So the cardstock, the anchor chart is printed on this cardstock. You can laminate it for durability and then post it inside of your classroom and use it year to year. So you're going to see that the 6 different syllable types are all listed here. Now, when I introduce this to students, I talk to them about what are syllables. And so we will often listen to syllables themselves in words. So I might say, all right, how many syllables do you hear in banana? So they say banana, and we will clap some of those out. However, it is very, very important to know that spoken syllables and written syllables are not the same. We have a tendency that when we are doing our syllables orally, so we are clapping syllables, for instance, we always stop the syllable after the vowel, which is not the case in written syllables. So I always like to point that out to students as we move forward. And what you're going to notice is that there is a progression with the 6 different types of syllables. So we have closed syllables, which we're going to go through each of these a little bit more in detail so that you can see the difference between them. Open syllables, a silent E syllable, Or this could be your consonant, your vowel consonant E syllable. You could also call it that instead of a silent E. It's just kind of varies depending on how you want to present that and continuing that common language across your grade levels. And then you have vowel teams, the R controlled, and then the consonant LE. So all of these are your 6 different types of syllables. Now online, you might end up seeing that there are 7 types of syllables. I want to discourage you from using the 7 types of syllables because what they're doing is they're isolating and changing the way that I think it has to do something with the digraphs or the way the blends are created. I would not mess with the 7 types of syllables. Focus in on the 6 types of syllables. This is research-based. It's from the science of reading. So you want to make sure that you're using something that has been vetted by research. And this has definitely done that. So it's a lot easier to teach 6 than it is to teach 7 of them because it's less to remember. Let's just be honest. So each different type of syllable plays a role in the way that the vowel is pronounced. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deeper look into the 6 different types of syllables using this anchor chart and also a whiteboard. Okay, so looking at these syllables and each one of these, we're going to talk about what each of these are. So a closed syllable is the first type that you are going to introduce to your students. And a closed syllable just simply means that when a vowel sound, so a vowel sound, is followed by a consonant sound, that vowel is going to be short. So for instance, we always see the word cat or bat or mat. And the reason that that A says a short sound is because this is one syllable word. And when we look at the T, that T basically is telling that vowel to say a short sound. Now, it is very important because a lot of teachers will be convinced that in order for it to be a short vowel, we have to have a CVC in the syllable. That is not the case. You do not have to have a consonant in front of that vowel in order for it to be short. The critical piece here is that there is a consonant after the vowel, which is important to remember here. So when inside of one syllable, it has a consonant sound, it is going to be a short vowel. So in here, I have 2 different examples. I give the word rabbit. And so we know, and this will be in a different video, but we know that when there's double letters like this, we're going to divide between the 2. So we have 2 different syllables. And so because there is a consonant, these vowels are both going to be short. Okay, so hopefully that has made a little bit more sense to you. Just remember, you do not have to have that consonant in front of it in order for it to be a short vowel sound. All right, so let's take a look at the second one, which is an open syllable. Now, an open syllable is the opposite. So whereas in a short vowel here, if we have a vowel in a syllable which is just by itself, there is really nothing here, which is the after part, that's the critical piece, and it's one syllable, that vowel is going to be long. So like words that we've often known as sight words, like he, she, be, me. The reason these all say the E sound at the end is because they're one syllable words. And if you look at the very end of that E, what do you see after it? Nothing. What makes it a long vowel sound. So the examples that I give you on the anchor chart itself are tiger. So we can separate it here, and because there is no consonant after that syllable or that vowel in that syllable, it's going to say a long vowel sound. So same thing with baby. So here, this is the syllable break. That A has no consonant after it, which is what makes it a long vowel sound. Okay, so the silent E is pretty self-explanatory, and these are often introduced late kindergarten and going into first grade. So the words like bake, make, pine. So because it is a vowel consonant E, that E is silent and it tells that vowel to say the long sound. I'm not going to go much more in depth in this one just because this is very, very common within teaching. Especially in the elementary grades, but it is important just to remember it as an upper elementary teacher. All right, the ones that start to get a little bit more complicated are going to be your vowel teams. Now, the vowel teams, so I give you the examples of team. We can do play. We say floats. All of these are one syllable words. Your vowel teams are here. And the vowel teams basically means that there are two letters or more in some cases that combine and they make one sound, one vowel sound. And so your EA, AY, OA are all going to be, and then we also have the word seed in this example, are all going to be vowel teams. And so they have a very specific sound that they're making. Vowel teams is one of the, I think, most critical pieces in elementary, especially as we start to get into like second grade, third grade, and as upper elementary teachers, this is where we start to see our kids fall apart because there are some vowel teams that are predictable. So some predictable vowel teams are going to be like AY, AI are predictable, meaning we know that they always say the long A sound. However, where they say that A is important because this comes at the end of a syllable and this comes in the middle of a syllable. Don't say word, make sure you're saying syllable for your students. So these are predictable, but if we look at EA, I mean, it has 3 different sounds and you really never know which sound it's going to make. However, there are percentages within the English language of saying EA is going to say this sound the majority of the time. So when that doesn't work, you're going to change it to the other sound to see if that fits that word. So that's where we start to see our kids fall apart, is within those the vowel teams, especially the unpredictable ones. The R-controlled vowels are pretty self-explanatory for the most part. So these are going to be a vowel that's followed by the letter R. So we have like car, we have bird, we have fort, and the R, we tend to hear it as like the bossy R because it starts to control the vowel sound. And then you don't hear the AI or the O in this case. So these are all of your R-controlled vowels. So the last one that we're going to talk about is the consonant LE, which is an unaccented final syllable containing a consonant and an LE. Now, it's important to know that within a consonant LE, the E is going to be silent, but this will end up being its own syllable in this case. So I give the example of bubble. So bub is one syllable and then bull is the second syllable. You have stay, pull. So PLE is going to be my final, and that E is going to be silent. So you just hear the ul sound at the very end of these words. Now, these are all typically found at the end of words or those syllables in these cases for students to be able to identify. Okay, so those are the 6 different types of syllables themselves. Now, what I'm not going to do in this video is go into how to break apart multisyllabic words with multiple syllables, because the purpose of this video is 1, to become familiar with just the 6 syllable types and knowing those 6 syllable types, and then 2, of understanding how to introduce this to your students. And here's the trick, is that if you're somebody who is not very comfortable with syllables and teaching kids about identifying those syllables in multisyllabic words, when you start to do a rollout that's very simple, that is explicit, that is providing them with more opportunities for practice, then what you're going to find is that you are then going to feel so much more confident in being able to identify them when you get to really challenging words in the future. And so when you introduce these, it's recommended that you introduce them in this specific order that you see here. So you want to begin with closed syllables, moving into open syllables, and continuing down the list. Now, obviously, your students are probably already reading multisyllabic words, which is fine. It's wonderful. But the reason that we want to teach them this is because we want them to have the tools to be able to unpack those multisyllabic words and identifying those various parts within that word. And it's going to make it very helpful, especially as they start to become writers and they need to understand why certain vowels are making certain sounds and how to build those inside of words as writers. So if you have students who are not performing at the level that you would like for them to perform in their writing, especially for spelling, this is going to help them tremendously. So when we're teaching these, you're going to teach these in the specific order that the syllables are introduced. When I would introduce these is going to be at the very beginning of the year. So anytime at the beginning of the year, before you start to get into a lot of work with syllables and breaking them down, you want to explicitly teach each one of these. And what I mean by that is that you're going to have one day, obviously not the whole day, but you're going to spend about 10 minutes in that one day where you really go in depth about closed syllables, and you're going to give them practice with only closed syllables. So I want to show you an example of something that I have utilized in my own classroom that works incredibly well, and that's also available within the Bridging Literacy community. So here is what I ended up doing for my students is I created slides. And if, again, you've been following me for a little bit, then you know that I am not very much of a slides teacher, but this was incredibly helpful for me at the very beginning of the year. And so what I did is for each of the parts in the slides, each syllable is going to be introduced on a separate day. And this is going to give them explicit instruction, but then it's also going to provide them with some guided practice, which is necessary. So here we go over what is a syllable and understanding what that means. We start to go into what is a closed syllable, provide them with some examples, and then we're going to look at some examples together. So here, look for the vowels, split between the two consonants, and keep the prefixes, suffixes. And this was me teaching them how to begin to split these apart. Again, I'm going to do that in a totally different video. So that way you can also practice with me as we start to go through this. So we had some explicit practice here. So we had winter, and when we did winter, we would break it between the N and the T, and we hear the E, and we had the ER component as well. So we would identify which one is going to be the closed syllable itself. So same thing with chapter, we had the chap was going to be our closed syllable, and we would have a discussion about each of those. Basket, so A and E are both going to be closed, and so my students would write this down and they would circle both of those closed syllable types. So I would give them some of that practice, but then I would give them another practice on top of that to go do independently, or they could end up doing this with a partner. So this is what this looks like here. And the way that this one works is that it's broken into 3 different sections. Here, it's circling the closed syllables. So thinking about which one is a closed syllable and making sure that they're circling it. So there are some syllables that have not been taught in there, but it's still important for them to have that practice. You can have them break it into syllables. So having them show where the syllable break is going to end up going. And these all are going to be short. There are no syllables that have not already been taught. So all of these are going to have closed syllables in every single piece of these words. So that's important to remember, is that I don't want to give my students something to break within syllables if I have not already explicitly taught it. It was fine for me to do it here, because I'm teaching this with my students. I'm working through this practice. I'm explaining them with it, and with them, they have a whiteboard in front of them. I'm walking around checking and providing feedback. But once we go here and they're doing it independently, I want to make sure that they're focusing on words that only have the ones that I've explicitly taught. So in this case, they only have closed syllables. And then at the bottom, explaining the type of syllable. It's just a very quick little exit ticket. And so the next day we would come back and we would I would have more practice for them. So in this case, I also have some of these where it's reading words that only have closed syllables. So the dots are there to help students be able to move their finger and read these as quickly as possible to build that fluency. The next day or 2 days, depending on how your students are performing and whether they need more practice, you might introduce the next syllable type. So in this one, we're going to do open syllables, and then I provide them with an example of the syllable division piece. And then we had some practice as well. So they would then build in some open vowels and closed vowels, and we would review both of those at the same time. So giving them words to practice. And then it's the same idea. Then they're going to go back and they're going to start to work with those open syllables. So in this case, they're going to have words, same idea. They're going to circle the open syllables. They're going to break it into syllables, and they're going to help explain what those syllables mean as an exit ticket for itself. And then I also do have some other practice as well. These do not come for all of the different syllable types, but they are there to help your students who need more practice. From there, we go into the silent E. So again, same idea, giving them some of those opportunities to practice. They're going to use whiteboards, and I'm going to be walking around. We're going to have a discussion about which of the syllables are what, based on what we've already learned. And then they have a silent E syllable practice. So you kind of get the gist of how I have been introducing it. But the big piece here is that every time I explicitly teach it, I'm giving them the practice here. They're going to do it with their whiteboards. I'm giving them feedback, and then they can go and do it independently for me to be able to check whether or not students are understanding it. And so we continue this until we have learned all 6 different types of syllables. As I mentioned earlier, all of these resources are available within the Bridging Literacy community. If you're somebody who's really interested in joining, you can cancel at any time. There is no type of contract or anything that goes along with it. So if you join and realize that it's not something that's quite fit for you, then you're welcome to be able to cancel, or we would love to keep you and help you be able to become a more confident literacy teacher this school year. Okay, so that is the introduction piece, is that we've gone through and I've explicitly taught, maybe giving a day to 2 days of opportunities for practice, building in some of these opportunities for warm up. Just remember that when you're teaching these, if you're not helping students and guiding them through this process, then you don't want to give them practice opportunities with vowels or syllables that you have not taught yet. So making sure that you're giving them plenty of opportunities to identify those closed syllables before moving on to the next one and the next one and the next one. You want them to feel confident, and in order for them to feel confident, they have to build fluency. And in order to build fluency, we have to be accurate first. So we have to know what it is, be able to do it quickly, and identify that quickly before we can move on and start to build on the skill sets themselves. So that is kind of the introduction piece as far as introducing each one, giving those opportunities for practice. Once you have done that and you've taught all 6 syllable types explicitly and given them those opportunities for practice, then you can start to incorporate multisyllabic words that has a mixture of various syllable types for students, and getting them to kind of think about how to break these words apart in order to be able to read them. Now, I'm not going to share that one in this video. I will do it in the next video where we're talking about syllable division and understanding how to have that syllable division. So make sure that you hit that notification bell so that you can get notified as soon as I upload that video. I hope that this was very helpful in understanding how to introduce it to your students and rolling out understanding the 6 different types of syllables so that they feel confident going into multisyllabic words. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on this video, and I will talk to you all very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.